Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa ahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Amma ba'd, assalamu alaykum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمسابنا بأبي عبد الله الحسين عليه الصلاة والسلام. Now we've been saying that when we read the Quran, we find a theme coming across. It's a salient from the beginning till the end. And that is the singularity of the Lordship of God. The singularity of the authority of God. And a requirement from us that we tend to God wholeheartedly, wholesomely, and solely to God. We are also being told that there is a huge problematic area, and that is shirk, association with God. We are also told that this world is a state of alienation from God, and we are making our way back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now the Quran teases our minds. He doesn't give us the full story in a chapter that, look, you were this, then this happened, now you're here, now work your way back to God. The reason for that, I don't know. It might have been easier for God to have just said a chapter on the origin and the return of mankind, like an academician writes a book. Why hasn't he done that? Well, maybe under the influence of certain pacts that we have made with God. But when we think about shirk, I'm going to give this as a prelude. God says, you will not worship anyone other than me. We will say, God, why are you so insecure? Does it ever occur to any mind, why are you so insecure? That is me, my feeble state, that if, I say to my children, if you like anybody else's lectures more than mine, I will disown you. I'm glad to see you're awake. Huh? I get the most responses when I make comments against my own self. But that's me. That's my feeble state. Allah, you're beyond it. It doesn't matter whether we worship you or worship anybody else. Why should you care? In the realest sense, you are God. Nobody can escape you. You are irresistible. Even if we worship A, B, and C, ultimately we are worshipping you because there's none other than you yourself. I don't expect such a feeble God. And then your rage and your anger and your forgive me for saying this, intolerant tone in the Quran, God, that's not really sitting well with me, that intuitive God that I worship. And okay, fine, I acknowledge shirk is a problem according to what you are saying in the Quran, but I don't understand how shirk is such a huge problem. So now people will say, well, Hindus are mushrik. I'll say, well, in their morality, are they saying lying is good? They'll say no. Are they saying cheating is good? No. Are they saying killing innocent people is good? No. Do they say be charitable, give life, honor your oaths and your pledges and take care of the old? Yes. Well, their moral code is the same as your own moral code, I say to myself. Let's ask them about their spirituality. Do you feel, I ask my Hindu brother, that there is an inner calling within us? And we should come to the fullness of our inner being. We should reclaim our humanity. But this term humanity is a little vague, so I always use the other word. Do you feel that we should shine fully in terms of the light of God that is vested within us, to allow that light to come to its fullest glory? They said, yes. Do you think we should become fearless for the sake of God? Yes. Reliant upon God fully? Yes. They're following the same spirituality as I am following. Do you feel there is one source for the whole being of the entirety of everything? Yes, they say. It is here. And I said, well, that shirk doesn't make sense to me at all. I'm calling them mushrik. They believe in the same spirituality that I do. They believe in the same, what I call the supreme being as I do. They believe in the same moral code as I do. What has gone wrong? There is something that is not sitting well here. Are we understanding shirk accurately? We have said we are in alienation. We are in a state of darkness right now. So it is here that we ask certain pertinent questions as to what does it all mean. We really don't know what we are dealing with. I can't call Hindu a mushrik in accordance with the theology that I follow and the theology that the Hindu follows. I don't find any mushrik here. So what is the mushrik in the realest sense? Now we need to work into this theme carefully and slowly. But a story does emerge, and the Quran hints at this, that in the deep human history, in the deep past, in the ancient human history, things have happened. And there have been problems, and those problems need to be acknowledged and we need to resolve them. That's the first thing which we'll be working at, just hinting at these things. The second thing is that the true point of shirk is not that idol. It is something totally different that we need to work at. Yes? Now when we go into the Quran, it asks us two things. Do not associate anyone with God. Acknowledge the authority of God solely and do righteous deeds. Now we might think that's very simple, right? This is La ilaha illallah and give charity and whatever we do and pray namaz. But when it came to the initial community in Makkah, the Prophet said, Qulu la ilaha illallah tuflihu. Say La ilaha illallah and you will be successful. Right? That's all he said. That was a simple requirement. But what did it mean to them? They said La ilaha illallah. These were people, not all of them. They had morals. There were good people amongst them as well. There were the Hanafis within them and there were the mushriks within them and all different types of people. Maybe some celestialists there as well. But when they said La ilaha illallah, they moved away from insecurity. They broke their idols. They let go of their superstitions. They were no longer insecure in terms of wealth. They were not insecure in terms of health and life. Now look at the transformation La ilaha illallah made within their lives. You're looking at a community of pagans stuck within a region in Arabia, couldn't venture beyond that region. They couldn't read or write. So now these people dare not venture out of Arabia. They don't know anything. They can't read. They can't write. When they said La ilaha illallah, what happened? They become scientists. They become explorers. They are humanitarians. They are giving their lives away for each other. These people are accepting the decree of God. This La ilaha illallah and tuflihu, success, meant something totally different to them. For us, La ilaha illallah means a ticket into paradise, doesn't it? For them, La ilaha illallah meant full transformation from within. It's a new person. A person who was afraid previously and praying to idols for their sustenance, for their life, now stands in front of raging swords to be torn into pieces. Look at their description in the Battle of Badr, how they were throwing themselves. Of course, very few got killed. But look at the way they are, this Sahaba. So La ilaha illallah and removal of shirk means something totally different. Now this is where we need to understand that we are talking about something quite profound. And Allah wants to remove this shirk in order for us to reclaim our light and rejoin God in that position that we were at one point, and bring up and come about as enlightened beings. Now, if you look at shirk properly, we will see that it is an inner state, the state of the heart and ego and mind. Now, as we go into this talk, I'm giving this prelude that the Blessed Prophet himself, when he commenced his journey in Makkah, he wasn't the man that he was at the end of his journey in Medina. Read the Quran in a chronological order. He suffered from anxiety, he had fear, he had aspirations, he had disappointments. He didn't know what to do at times. That was the Prophet in Makkah. When the revelation got cut or when it ceased to come, he was perplexed, he was confused. It is our failure to see the Prophet in his humanness that does not allow us to appreciate his own journey. The Prophet evolved, and I'll be developing that tomorrow. The Prophet evolves from the Meccan phase, initial one, to the last phase, from the Medinan phase beginning to the middle phase to the last phase. We are seeing how through La ilaha illallah, the Prophet himself reclaims his glorious status with God. Now, the first thing the Quran says to us is that you have not been given but a very little knowledge. يَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ قُلْ إِنَّ الرُّوحَ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي وَمَا أُوتِيتُ مِنْ عِلْمٍ إِلَّا قَلِيلٍ. Surah 17, verse 85. They ask you concerning the spirit. Say, spirit is from the command of my Lord, but you have been given very little knowledge. Now often the Mufassirin would probably interpret that to mean that you have been given very little knowledge concerning the spirit, the ruh. But actually, it is a universal statement. You have not been given knowledge save a very little. And that is our state here. There's a reason why we haven't been given the fullness of knowledge. And we discussed this yesterday somewhat. Now, given that we have very little knowledge, we are asked that, look, shirk needs to be avoided, disassociate from other than God. And to the extent in Surah Nisa, there are this verse is repeated twice in Surah Nisa. So consider this verse, Surah 4, verse 48. Consider this verse. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَغْفِرْ أَن يُشْرَكَ بِهِ وَيَغْفِرْ مَا دُونَ ذَلِكَ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ. Allah does not forgive that he is associated, that any association is set up with him. But he forgives anything other than shirk for whoever he wants. Now, don't get angry when I say this. Listen to this. Just listen to this. According to this verse, God can forgive Saddam if he has not done shirk. Can you see that? It is within the remit of this verse. Now, can you imagine how grand this statement is? God can forgive monsters that are out there right now. And we know who they are, butchers of humanity. He's saying, yes, I can forgive anything less than shirk. Shirk, I will not forgive. The immediate question that comes to the mind is, and then the rest of the verse says, وَمَنْ يُشْرِكْ بِاللَّهِ فَقَدْ إِفْتَرَى إِثْمًا عَظِيمًا. Whoever associates with Allah has fabricated a mighty sin. In Surah Luqman says to his son, لَا تُشْرِكْ بِاللَّهِ إِنَّ الشِّرْكَ لَظُلْمٌ عَظِيمٌ. Do not do shirk with Allah. Shirk is the biggest dhulm. And dhulm means the greatest darkness. It's the greatest darkness. Now when you study this verse and look at the etymology, the state of light is the state of God. Alienation is darkening the soul. Luqman is saying, the verses are saying, shirk dhulmun azim. Shirk is the greatest form of darkness. We will immediately understand that the interpretation of the verse is not that God cannot forgive. It is more a case of shirk is an unforgivable state within itself. Can you see that? Does that make sense? It's not that God cannot do this or is not willing to do this. It's an undoable thing. The sun, regardless of good or evil people, will impart its rays and light upon all. The sun can't stop doing that. If the sun stops doing that, the sun would not remain a sun, right? The star would not remain that star. But when I put my hands in front of my face or an umbrella and I block the sun rays from coming to me, then I am the one who is creating a state where the rays of the sun cannot reach me. When we study these verses, we are saying that it is not that God does not wish to forgive. He is trying to say that it is an unforgivable state. Now I just want to emphasize this again. You see, if we were to hold God as a perfect being, he just has a few qualifications. He is all-knowing. He is all capable, omnipotent. And He is all powerful. He can do whatever He wants. If God is all this, then He is, by definition, needless of all. Now, if He needs me to worship Him and to tell Him, you are my only God, then His needlessness goes. His kindness goes. Then it falters with the definition of God. So we want to uphold God as the perfect being and want to also state that shirk is unforgivable, then that means that the shirk has to be interpreted accurately. And the state that we incur of alienation has to be understood accurately. So shirk is not mere proclamation of God other than God. It is something far more profound, far more deeper, and it needs to be understood, it needs to be resolved. We are at this present time embedded within layers of shirk. I'm just going to give this hint before we go. You know this ring? This ring is a point of shirk. If I lose my confidence when I take it off, then that means I have given some potency to this ring. Now we'll explain tomorrow how that happens. But that is a layer of shirk. We are performing this. It is barring our growth, right? According to that, giving sadaqah, shall I put it back on or leave it off just to prove a point? All right. When we give sadaqah, it's a commendable thing. Ward off evils from me. But here, the one who is putting any potency within the charity that we're giving is, well, I'm with you in any case. I'm with you in any case. Why are you so afraid? Why are you so insecure? These are layers of shirk in which we are engulfed. We need to understand this thing accurately, so we'll take it slowly. So shirk is an unforgivable existential state with which we are born. Now, Surah Kahf, which is Surah 18, verse 110. Look at the way the verse is phrased. The Prophet is being told to say, Qul, innama ana bashar mithlukum. I am only a mortal like you. Can you imagine the phraseology of the Quran? Say to them, I am but a mortal like you. I'm on my own journey. The Prophet was on his own journey. He was evolving, but the greatest man who has ever graced the face of this earth, undeniably. Yuha ilayya. It has been revealed unto me. Innama ilahukum ilahun wahid. That your God is one God. Now look at what the verse says. وَمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو لِقَاءَ رَبِّهِ. Now whoever is desirous of meeting his Lord, فَلْيَعْمَلْ عَمَلًا صَالِحًا. Let them perform righteous deed. وَلَا يُشْرِكْ بِعِبَادَةِ رَبِّهِ أَحَدًا. And let him not associate with his devotion of his Lord anyone else. Now I ask you a simple question. If you want to meet with God, this verse is saying, do righteous deeds and do not associate anyone with God in your devotion. On the day of Qiyamah, are we all going to meet with God or not? Whether we like it or not, the Saddam of this world and the Yazid of this world and all of them, are they all not going to be gathered in front of God with Isa, Musa, Nuh and the blessed Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Are we not all going to meet with God? So what does this verse mean? What meeting is it talking about? It is talking about the real meeting. Otherwise everybody will meet with God. Look at the verses of the Quran. لَقَدْ نَسِيتَ لِقَاءَ يَوْمِنَا هَذَا. You forgot the meeting of our day, on our meeting on this day. So we have forgotten you. Which means everybody will be meeting with God. I mean, of course, God not as a person, but you know what I mean. So what is this verse talking about? It is talking about the real union and meeting with God. Reclaiming our position and reducing that alienation. Or that distance between us and our beauty, which is God or our own self, that has become hidden from us. This meeting with God obviously is at two levels. One is the physical meeting on the day of resurrection when we are resurrected. And other is the inner meeting with God. Now I'm going to just say this before we go forward, and I hope I finish the topic. You see, There will be a person, and I'm repeating this, who will say to God, you know what, I don't remember doing any of these things. So then the scrolls will be opened. And he will say, well, your angels have written this down. Your scribes have written this down. So the mouths will be sealed and the limbs will speak. You know the verses. On the other hand, there is Isa salamullah alayhi. He will say, Allah, why are you embarrassed? This is not in the Quran, why you're embarrassed. I'm paraphrasing Isa. Why do you put me through this embarrassment? You know what I have done. Why are you asking me? That's the tone of the conversation. You know what is in my soul. Why do you need to even ask me? Isa is meeting with God in this form of union, whilst the other one is meeting with God in the state of alienation through the body. So shirk is dealt with at two levels: the bodily shirk and the real shirk. But the bodily shirk that is frowned upon within the Quran is only because it wants to address the real state of shirk, which we need to explore. Now, in terms of the apparent shirk, this is what the verses are saying, and it's quite important. We listen to these. Surah Saba, which is Surah 34, verses 40 and 41. وَيَوْمَ يَحْشُرُهُمْ جَمِيعًا ثُمَّ يَقُولُ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ أَهَؤُلَاءِ إِيَّاكُمْ كَانُوا يَعْبُدُونَ. On the day in which all of them are resurrected, and he says to the angels, did these people worship you? Did these people worship you? Now imagine the angels are being asked, because these people have come with such notions of God that are so alien to the truth. Were they worshipping you? قَالُوا سُبْحَانَكَ. The angels are saying, glory be to you, anta waliyuna, you are our saintly authority, min dunihim, as opposed to these people. بَلْ كَانُوا يَعْبُدُونَ الْجِنِّ. They used to worship the jinn. أَكْثَرُهُمْ بِهِمْ مُؤْمِنُونَ. Majority of these people who are mushrik had faith in the jinn. Now this is pointing at such a deep reality in the deep historical past of humanity. Now I want to explore this theme in future, very cautiously and very, very slowly. Human community has been messed up with, and prior to this, maybe in another realm, we have done things. Because Shaitan also says in two places. Shaitan says in one place, I deny the shirk that you did. You associated me with God. And Surah Yasin says, did I not take an oath from you, you will not worship Shaitan? So there is some connection with apparent shirk and jinn. Now jinn is not those, demonic creatures that, according to the Quran, jinn are creatures that are veiled from us in the interdimensional world or scattering the universe or even upon the earth. So something has happened, and as a result we are messed up and we need to rectify things. Now look at this verse of Fatir 35 verse 14. Now Quran is adamant to stamp out every form of association with anybody that can lead into shirk. Now I know our community is big on certain practices, but look at these verses, yeah? The Quran says, إِن تَدْعُوهُمْ لَا يَسْمَعُوا دُعَاءَكُمْ. If you were to call whoever you're calling upon, they will not hear what you're saying. وَلَوْ سَمِعُوا مَسْتَجَابُوا لَكُمْ. And if they were to be able to hear you beyond that, they can't respond to you. وَيَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ يَكْفُرُونَ بِشِرْكِكُمْ. And on the day of Qiyamah, these very beings that you are calling, whoever they are, without exception, will deny you associating them with God. Now look at this verse. Surah Ma'idah, Surah 5, verse 109. يَوْمَ يَجْمَعُ اللَّهُ الرُّسُلِ. The day in which Allah will gather all the messengers. Now these are the messengers. فَيَقُولُ. And God will say, مَاذَا أُجِبْتُمْ. What was the response that you were given? Yeah? They are saying, قَالُوا لَا عِلْمَ لَنَا. We have no knowledge. We died, we left them. We have no knowledge of what they did. Right? إِنَّكَ أَنْتَ عَلَّامُ الْغُيُوبِ. You are the one who knows all the secrets and the hidden. We don't know. Now, if somebody finds it difficult, then look at this verse. Ma'idah, Surah 5, 116 and 117. And when Allah says to Isa ibn Maryam, did you say to the people, take me and my mother as two gods besides Allah? Isa is saying, Qala subhanak, glory be to you, O Allah. Ma yakunu li an aqula ma laysa li bihaqq. Why should I say something for which I have no right? In kuntu qultuhu faqad alimta. If I had said it, you would have known it. Ta'limu ma fi nafsi wa la a'lamu ma fi nafsik. You know what is in my soul. I don't know what's in your soul. Innaka anta allamul ghuyub. You know all the secrets. Then look at what Isa says. Ma qultu lahum illa ma amartani bihi. I did not tell them anything save what you commanded me to tell them. Ani abudullah rabbi wa rabbukum. Worship Allah who is my Lord and your Lord. Wa kuntu alayhim shahida ma dumtu fihim. O Lord, I bore witness upon them so long as I was with them. فَلَمَّا تَوَفَّيْتَنِي. And when you seized me and took me, كُنْتَ أَنْتَ الرَّقِيبَ عَلَيْهِمْ. Then you were watchful over them. What is Jesus saying? After I left them, I have no knowledge. I have no knowledge. Now Quran is adamant. Quran is saying, look, even the Prophet, if you were to call them, they can't hear you. If they could hear you, they can't respond to you. In one place the Quran says, the Shaheed talk to you, you can't hear them. The Quran is adamant that look, there is something going on. The dead people are not dead in the way you think. They might be seeing and hearing. But as far as you're concerned, they are of no use to you. They can't hear you. If they hear you, they can't respond to you. If they respond to you, you can't hear them. Finish. It's your story with your God. Get it right. Go back to Allah properly. Understand things properly. Find Him again. Now when the Surah Fatiha came, right, the Prophet took pride, Sab'a Mathani, that nobody has been given this prayer. Reflect on the Muslim namaz in the Muslim Surah Fatiha. There is nothing but a universal message of devotion to the Lord that everybody believes in. There is nothing in that namaz of the Muslims that is specifying that it is for one religion. It's a very universal prayer that each religion can make. In that in that prayer, the pride of the prayer is Surah Hamd. We say, Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'een. Only you do we worship and only you do we seek help from. Look at the gravity of what we are proclaiming. To ask help from other than God may not be wrong, I don't know. They can help us, possibly, I don't know. But the Quran is giving us a code through which we are making commitment. He's saying, make this commitment. I will only worship you. We will only seek help from you. There must be a reason why Prophet Muhammad recited this. Why Ali ibn Abi Talib recited it. Al-Hasan and Hussain recited this. They were saying only from you we are asking help. Leave aside worship. They're saying you want help. We're not going to ask from anybody else. Why is God so adamant to remove this distraction of turning away from God to anybody else, even in the slightest? You have to admit God is all-wise. When He prescribes something, it means something. And when we recite it, we need to be cognizant of what we are saying. Now so if you look at Surah Araf, because people, we have this tendency of, if we see somebody like Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, obviously we know he's a man of God. We know he's grand. And we associate potency with him, don't we? That he can do this and he can do that. That's what we feel, don't we? But I think we maybe don't read the Quran, or maybe we just don't reflect upon it. Surah Araf, Surah 7, verse 188. Please open it on your smart devices. Look, this is what God is commanding the Prophet to say. This is just one of those verses. Qul, Muhammad, say, La amliku li nafsi, I do not have any control, naf'an wala darra, over any gain or any loss for my own self. Think about this. Muhammad, tell them, I have no control to bring any good to myself or remove any evil from myself. What a verse. Forget about you, I can't even do it for my own self. Illa ma sha Allah, except Allah may consent to. If He consents to some good, it will come to me. If He consents to the removal of harm, it will leave me. I can't do any of these things for myself. Leave aside you praying to me. وَلَوْ كُنْتُ أَعْلَمُ الْغَيْبِ لَاسْتَكْثَرْتُ مِنَ الْخَيْرِ وَمَا مَسَّنِيَ السُّوءُ. He's even being told to say that if I knew the unseen, I would have procured many benefits and I would have repelled many evils, but I don't even know the unseen. Why is the Quran adamant to force, forgive me for using this verse, force the Prophet Muhammad to say these things? Because the Quran did not want the human community to be misguided through guidance. The Prophet Muhammad came through with guidance. Look, guide them. This is their goal. This is what they're supposed to do. But least through this process of guidance, they become misguided through you yourself. So say this to them. Now the Prophet came. If you go to Medina, at Uhud, you will recite a hadith from one of the Sahih books of, or Sunni Sahih books. I don't distinguish between Sunni and Shia, as you know. The Prophet Muhammad, in the initial phase, he prohibited people from going to the graveyards. Why? Because he was fearful that when they go to the graveyard, there is this tendency within them to turn to other than Allah and supplicate and to plead with other than Allah. So he said, in order to stamp out and root out this tendency, I asked you not to go to the graveyard. At a later date, then he said, now I'm asking you to go to the graveyard so that you may reflect that this is your end. This is where you are going to come. So make the most of the opportunity of life that you have. So the Prophet initially prohibited people from visiting the graves. Later on, he said, now that your minds are accurately directed towards God, now go to the graveyard in order for you to become enlightened. You know about this adamant tone of the Prophet, don't draw anything. Don't make any statues. Initially, he was very adamant. Don't draw anything, because if you draw something, God will ask you to breathe soul into it or spirit into it. So he prohibited his people from drawing. Why? Because there was that tendency that they would lean towards other than God. If you look at our community, you see our practices. These practices, as I will describe in a little while, are not shirk, but they are bordering dangerously on all those things that the Prophet was afraid of. And when we want to commit ourselves to a practice, then it has to stem from the Prophet himself, right? Because the Imams were the interpreters of whatever the Prophet taught. Imams cannot be beyond and above the Prophet. Is that agreeable? Imam Sadiq, if he says something, we can ask him, why do you say this? He will have to root his response within the Quran or the statement of the Prophet. Look at Imam Ali. He would say, I have heard my Habib, the Prophet, say this. So the Imams cannot be above the Prophet. The Prophet is the source. The Quran is the source, right? To the best of our reading, the Prophet has never done tawassul. Now, I'm not saying it's shirk, but the Prophet has never done tawassul of Hazrat Ibrahim or whoever. The Quran is not talking about tawassul at all. Imam Ali never did tawassul of the Prophet. Imam Hussain, at that point of unbearable tribulation, has never done tawassul of his father Imam Ali or his grandfather the Prophet. They have not done these things. As a community of people who are following the Quran, the teachings of the Prophet, the teachings of Imam Ali, we need to become more mindful of our practices. It might not constitute shirk, and I'm going to explain that afterwards, but it dangerously borders to those things that the Prophet was afraid of. We need to be mindful of this. Now, the other tendency within our minds is that we don't understand what shirk is properly. So we go around labeling each other as mushrik, right? So if somebody says, Ya Ali Madad, we say he's a mushrik, and I say Ya Ali Madad all the time. Now when I go to, the shops of my Wahhabi brothers, I try not to say Ya Ali Madad, and it just comes out Ya Ali Madad. And they say, well, after all, no matter who you've become right now, there's Shiaism inside you to the core. But the thing is, yes, one is saying something, and I know whenever I say it, it works as well. It's amazing the way it works, but that's another philosophy altogether. Inshallah, we'll explain it at some point. But, we say saying Ya Ali Madad is shirk, and it's not right to say that either, yes? It's not right to say this and antagonize people in that way. So we say Christians are mushrik. The Quran does not call them mushrik. See, the problem is here. The Quran is not calling them mushrik. Yes, they are doing wrong, but they're not committing shirk by the definition of shirk, the formal definition of formal shirk. Yes, there might be inner shirk, but not the outer formal shirk. Now look at Surah Ma'idah, Surah 5, verse 72 and 73. Look at the tone that the Quran acquires. لَقَدْ كَفَرَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّ اللَّهُ وَالْمَسِيحِ ابْنَ مَرْيَمَ. Indeed, the people who say Allah is Isa are doing kufr. Kafara means, in this instance, and go and check it, I don't have time to conduct this discussion. Kafara here means they are denying the obvious truth. But Allah does not call them mushrik. Why? Because they're saying, God, we are not saying that there's another God with you. We are just saying you are one of three, and all three are just you. The Christian sense of the Trinitarian theology. You ask the Christian, what do you mean? Is there more than one God? They say, no, there's only one God. But that one God has three aspects. So they reconcile it. So they don't belong within the folds of shirk. Another verse. لَقَدْ كَفَرَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ ثَالِثٌ ثَلَاثًا. The people who are saying God is one of three are doing kufr, i.e. denying the obvious truth. But it is not shirk. So we have to be mindful that when we label people, that we don't call them mushrik either, and slowly understand what is going on. So according to the Quranic language, the formal shirk is when we have a commitment that there is a Lord whose lordship is independent of Allah. Yeah? Whose lordship is independent of God. Or rivaling God or through God. Now, there's a verse in the Quran that the Meccans are saying that, but we don't worship these beings save that they should lead us in proximity to God. And the Quran considers that gesture a gesture of shirk. But it's an inner gesture of shirk and an outer gesture of shirk, because those gods, what they ordain them, is contrary to what Allah is ordaining them. So now when you look at the Meccan mushrikeen, if you read Surah An'am, they were saying that these are the daughters of God, Lat, Manat and Uzza. These are the daughters of God, and the Quranic and the birds that fly and so on and so forth. But their problem was, they were saying, yes, the lofty God is Allah. However, they were putting rivals up with God. So if you read Surah An'am, the sacrifices that were being made for their gods were wholesome for them to consume. But the sacrifices made in the name of Allah was not wholesome for them to consume. So they were bringing rivals in front of God. That's the first thing. The second thing was that they were saying that these gods, whatever they are ordaining, we will follow, and it's consistent with what God is ordaining. So there was rivalry with God, and that's why their shirk was problematic even at a formal level. From this, what we understand is that the Muslim community, by saying Ya Ali Madad, doing tawassul, whatever they are doing, is not shirk in the formal sense. However, it's so close to the inner shirk that is totally frowned upon. When you say Iyaka na'budu, we are saying, okay, formally we are not worshipping other than Allah. But then there's a second one, wa Iyaka nasta'een. We only seek assistance from you. At that level, the community is failing. So it's problematic. And it adds to the inner state of shirk. Now, what I said in the beginning is, and I want to finish on time, because I'm petrified of taking more than my 40, 50 minutes, and I think I've already taken it, right? The problematic area is what is happening within us. Now, we will talk about this afterwards in a few days' time. Now, if I were to pray and say there is one God, but not understand God, and not become empowered through God, then how has my worship of one God at all assisted me? It's just removing one label and putting another one on me, right? I was belonging to this religion, now I am in this religion. So I'll ask myself, what difference has it made? Well, I pray namaz now and I fast. I say, okay, fine. Have you become a secure person within yourself? The answer is, well, not really. Are you still afraid? Yes. Are you still filled with anxiety? Yes. Are you still scared of death? Yes. So has there occurred within you a substantive change? The answer is no. So the outer layer of shirk is removed, but the inner layers of shirk are still engulfing us. So in the story of rebellion against God, association with God, alienation from God is still there. I am still in alienation from God. I am still defying my God from within myself. I am still insecure. Think about this carefully. If I really believed that Allah is the kindest of all and He is the best of planners, would I be then complaining about the destiny that He decrees for me? Would I still be complaining? If God decrees for me poverty, would I turn to Him and plead with Him to change it for me? Or should I be like Abraham? Of course, this is anecdotal. When Abraham was flung in the pits of Namrud, the raging inferno, Jibreel appears. He says, I can save you. Abraham says, away with you. It is between me and my Lord. Then ask your God to save you, because we can't withstand what is happening to you. Ibrahim said, يَعْرِفُ حَالِي وَيُغْنِي عَنْ سُؤَالِي. He knows my state. He is needless of me asking. If He wants, let Him burn me to ashes. If He wants, let Him make the fire cool for me. It is up to Him. He is the best of planners. Now, I'm not saying we should go to that extent of Ibrahim, because I certainly can't do it. But what I'm here asking is that inner state, is it still in alienation from God, even after formally accepting one God? We saw the example of the Meccans, how they are transformed from people who are so insecure, so superstitious, coveting life and wealth and property, to people who are giving it all away, to people who are living to die for the sake of Allah, for people who are dying for each other. That is reunion with God by the removal of shirk. Removal of the formal shirk is at two levels. One is when you worship other than God, they are giving you a different moral code to the one that God is giving you. The Meccans, they had a very exploitative social system, and they were saying it's ordained by our gods. One is that problem. The other one is the problem of Iyaka nasta'een, being distracted from God and further re-emphasizing this alienation. I'm going to stop at this point, but I just want to make one little remark here. If you look at the religious practices, and they're all very good, they're all very, very, very good. But look at how they are verging on shirk, not outer shirk, inner shirk. And I'm going to talk about my own experience here. Whenever I would see a black cat, I would get petrified. I would make deals with God. I would make deals with God, and I was thinking, actually the cat gets frightened when it sees me. And the cat is making deals with God that I've seen this, bad omen, save me. I would forget to wear my ring. I would lose my confidence. Look at the state of turmoil in which we are. I thought to myself, have I ever given sadaqah without an insecure mind or heart? The answer was no. I've always given sadaqah because I want Allah to remove bad omens from me. And then you think to yourself that my neighbor doesn't believe in Allah, doesn't give sadaqah in the same way. God has looked after him. The only thing is he is confident. I lack confidence totally. I pray namaz. How? God will punish me. Is that me having confidence with God? Isn't that a layer of shirk? That I'm worshipping God through fear? Shouldn't I be like Ali salamullah alayhi, say, oh Allah, if you burn me, I will burn with pride. Because you've chosen the fire for me, it's good for me than to be in paradise. Of course, I don't mean any of that. But shouldn't that be the innermost sentiment? Outer shirk has been removed by the Quran and the teachings of the Prophet in Imam Ali, so that the inner shirk doesn't take birth. For that is the natural propensity within our souls. Hur meets Imam Hussain as he intercepts him. Now Imam Hussain, obviously, he gives water to the soldiers and the horses. Imam Hussain gives a sermon. He says, you've called us. If you no longer wish me to lead you, allow me to return. Who says, I do not understand what you talk about? He said, the endless letters you've sent me. He said, I have no knowledge. The letters were brought. Who said, I'm not the one who has written to you, whilst others lowered their heads in embarrassment. Imam Hussain ascends his steed. Hur comes to Imam Hussain. He said, oh Hussain, do not go. I have no doubt they will put you to death. Hussain said, do you frighten me with death, O Hur? I will respond to you in a way. A youth of Aus responded to his community when he set out with the Prophet to meet with the enemy. He said, when a youth is resolved to go forth in the way of Allah, and if death meets him, then he dies gloriously. And if he lives without regret. It is sufficient for you, O Hur, that you call yourself a free man, and your nose is rubbed in the dust of humiliation. Hur understood that this Hussain is resolved to die. Hur grabbed the reins of Imam Hussain, Imam Hussein's horse. He said, I cannot let you go. In a rage, Imam Hussain said, may your mother weep over your dead body. He was imprecating and cursing Hur. However, this is a figurative way of speaking. Hur said, Hussain, startled, I would have responded in a like manner to anyone other than you. But what may I say when your mother is Fatima? Hur accompanies Imam Hussain. It is prior to the break of day on the day of Ashura. Hur goes to Umar ibn Sa'ad. What do you intend to do? In no time shall their heads fall. In no time shall their arms be severed. When Hur heard this, he understood that they intend to kill Imam Hussain. And he heard the plea of Imam Hussain, is there anyone who shall come for our aid? Is there anyone who will protect the honor of the household of the messenger? He shook violently. He made his way towards Imam Hussain. Muhajir asked him, he said, Hur, do you wish to leave the battlefield? Or do you wish to preempt an attack? I see you have turned pale. And if I were to be asked, who is the bravest of the warriors in Kufa? I would not hesitate to utter your name. Who said, by Allah, I see myself between heaven and hell, and I will not prefer hell over heaven, even if I'm cut into pieces and then burnt. Who slowly advances towards Hussain, accompanied by his son and his brother. As he reaches Imam Hussain, he says, is there forgiveness in your soul for me? I come penitent. I ask for your forgiveness. Descend from your steed, O Hur, for I have forgiven you. Allow me to stay mounted. Allow me to speak with the daughters of the Prophet. So be it. He comes outside the tent. He says, O daughters of the Prophet, it is I who stopped you from leaving this place. It is I who became the reason for your captivity in this wilderness. It is I for whose sake our master Hussain will be put to death. I plead with you to not complain against me to your grandfather. As he said this, cries arose from the tent. He cried and beat his face. He came back to Imam Hussain. He said, O Hussain, allow me to demonstrate my loyalty to you. Allow me to go forth. Go, O brother. Hur sent his son Bukair. Bukair fought. He came back. He said, Father, give me a drink of water. He said, there is no water. Go, die for Hussain. As Bukair fell, he called out to Hur. And this is the scene that is described, with his head held up high with pride. Did you see how my son fought? He comes to the body of his son as he's about to breathe his last. May Allah reward you on behalf of your father. And may Allah receive you in the halls of paradise. Hur enters the battlefield. And he said, I am Hur. My house is renowned for its hospitality. How dare you call Hussain? And then resolve to kill him. May God not quench your thirst on the day of reckoning. Indeed, I shall unleash my sword upon you and spare you not. He fought with them until his horse was killed. He came to the ground. And then he fought again until a fateful sword hit his blessed head. As he trembled upon the dust, the popular narration says he called out, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. Hussain rushed to him with Habib. Hussain lifts the head of Hur and places it into his lap. Anta Hur, you are a free man, as your mother named you, O Hur. There's a smile on Hur's lips. Habib says, O Hur, do you see his grandfather with the goblets of Kauthar? Hur said, no, Habib, I see no such thing. He said, then why do you smile, Hur? He said, because I see my head in his lap as I breathe my last. Rahmallah man qara al-Fatiha.